Hello, my podcast friends and family. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Embodied Healing Self. I'm so excited to share with you a beautiful guest and friend this week, Suzanne Acteson from Southwest France. And she is just a beautiful example of feminine leadership. She's a business coach and a mother, and she has totally created her dream life, and she's helping other women to do the same by creating a business that they love. So we met in, I guess, 2019.
Eight, 18,
18.
19, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, through Amber Lillystrom, who has been a guest on the show, and some other women also on the show have been from that mastermind. And we got to meet in person, which was super fun.
We did.
And because you flew out to New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is a lovely little town. And then we collaborated on something called Envision in beginning of 2020. And then here we are again. And it is my joy and my honor to have you as a guest on the show to share your work, your heart, your soul in the world. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a nice introduction. And yeah, that was, we met pre-COVID, and then here we are, hopefully post-COVID.
Yeah, what a wild ride, but here we are. And it's I guess it just goes to show, like, we can still continue to live a life that we choose despite what's happening on around us, as you and I have both
100%.
continued to do. Yeah. So in the time since I've seen you, you built this like beautiful home. You've really shifted. You've always been kind of an entrepreneur. You had another business before. So
Yes.
tell me a little bit about, I guess, just kind of where, that creative spark came from, and how you chose to transition into the work you're doing now, and how you got to be in the place that you love back in France.
Um, yeah, so it has been, a journey right round the globe. And you said back in France, probably without really even knowing that I was born here. So I was born here, and I've circumnavigated the globe, and I'm back where I was born. We only lived here for about 8 months when I was born, but I was raised in Canada, and spent prior to France, spent almost 20 years in Australia. Hence my kind of little bit of a mishmashed accent that's all over the place, and have an English husband to boot. So my accent's a bit everywhere, but it has a Canadian base. And in Australia, I was running an advertising agency. So working corporate, managing director of a big company. And very, I don't know if you've ever seen Mad Men, but very Adland is, Don Draper, testosterone fueled corporate nightmare. Other than the smoking inside the office, it's a testosterone fueled environment. And I was I'm running a company, so running a business within, a framework of masculinity, and towed the line a lot on so many things in my corporate journey, that went against kind of who I felt I was, and I did it well. I was running the business by 35. I was accomplishing lots of different things. It was fulfilling me in a lot of ways, because I'm a generator, and so that doing and going, really plays to my strengths. But I also tried to lead in more feminine inspired ways at the time, and was called soft, and I remember going into a review once, and the CEO of a parent company, or COO of our parent company, said he thought I needed to be more mongrel in my management style. And so mongrel, obviously, like a
What's a
monster or
mongrel,
some,
right?
well, I think it's just like a really rabid dog.
Yeah.
And so he said I needed to be more mongrel. And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And, I still refer to that story so many times as one of the things that, that inspired me when I went from Australia, moved to France, and had this, blank slate, or they say carte blanche in France, to start again and recreate. And we made the shift from Australia to France to reconnect with what mattered most to us in life, and we didn't know what that was at the time. We were running at this pace. Like I said, I was running this business, and it was in Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. So I was on a plane. I was on a plane every week of my career, going between Melbourne and Sydney, or into Asia, and all over the place. And I love that. That did, that did fulfill me, because one of my values is spirit of adventure. But I was sacrificing so many things along the way, including myself. And we got to this point in our life where we had all of these things. We had the beautiful house, we had renovated multiple properties, we had a beach house, and all the bits and pieces, but we still felt lost. We still felt kind of disconnected with ourselves, and had just had a newborn baby, my third son. And he was born at the end of June, and in Australia it's the winter in June. And for the first time in years, I paused and I slowed down. And for a few months, I remember, because it was the winter, you couldn't really do anything else. And my husband would light the fire in the day and leave or go to work and come back. And he was self-employed as well, so he was coming in and out of the house. And I just felt this tranquility kind of come over me. And I said, something's got to shift, something's got to change. And that was kind of the catalyst. Normally a baby comes into your life and causes chaos. He caused, calm. And he causes a bit of chaos now, but at 6 years old. But that was kind of the aura that came over us. And we just started having these conversations, and we'd had a vision and a dream to move to Europe 10 years before he was born. And so we started talking about that again, and reinvigorating that conversation. And we said, what happens if we do this now? So we packed up, fast forward a few months, obviously, and lots of conversations and tears and, upheaval and uprooting of our lives. And we put everything that we owned into a container and parked it in outside the city. And with our 7 suitcases, we flew to Australia, and our 3 kids flew to France. And that's where we've been since 2017. So that was the journey here, the leaving of corporate. In between there, I did have my own business, a store in Melbourne. And so in 2017, we spent the first year just really kind of figuring out what we were doing. We said, if it lasts a year, then great, then we go back and see how things go. But we just fell into this pace in France, where it was obviously much slower. We came to the countryside. We'd always been living in the city. And we just started to really lean into doing less. We were looking for something more. We were looking for something in us, but we found, in searching for more, we actually found less. We found that less of everything meant more. Our kids learned a language, which was really big, a big part of the adventure and why we wanted to do it. We not knowing where we were going to be living, we kind of like threw a dart on a dartboard and landed in this little village where we are. So we explored a lot that first year, and took lots of car rides, and to the beach and to the mountains and to all over the place. And for once in my life, I wasn't working or striving towards something. And it gave me a lot of time to contemplate. I do seek a lot of fulfillment, and I feel I do love working. I like working. So I knew I wanted to get back to something. And so, but it just gave me this space. It gave me this creative space to explore what the next version was going to look like. And I knew I had a lot of skills to bring to the table. So I just started coaching people. I started helping people, and started just doing what I knew I did well. And I started having an impact on women. And I started realizing that there was a real opportunity here I could see a lot of women just hustling and grinding and stressing and feeling overwhelmed because they were hustling and grinding and trying to be, boss moms. And a lot of them are moms. And so they're juggling, that it's the ultimate juggle. But I could really see, the more I leaned into what I have discovered is my more feminine self, and instead of always just being in my just doing things all the time and going from list to list to list, the more I just learned how to be, and learned how to be comfortable in just being, and in doing things that I love to do. And in that space, I baked and I gardened and I traveled around, and I went for long walks, and I reconnected not just with my husband and my family, but I reconnected with myself.
Mm.
And then I brought that spirit and that soul to my business coaching, and I found magic. I kind of found this, this fused this space where I could do the things, the strategies and all the, the doing that I do well, and I could embody that, and I could and from that I could create a business that I truly loved, and
Mm.
that I could create a life. That was the first and foremost thing, was I could create a life, a dream life, that was thanks to my business and not in spite of it.
Mm. That's beautiful. Thanks to it instead of in spite of it. Yeah.
That's right.
Wow, there's so much that we can unpack there. Thank you for sharing that. I think what's coming through is that my sense is that there are a lot of women seeking this permission
Mm,
to, especially, I guess, in the time that we grew up. And I know that's been a huge part of my life story as a former exec engineer, even in the military. And so, really breaking that paradigm of
mm,
masculinity, and in the sense of it's just very structured. There is that hustle and that grind, and we've gotten to a place where I like to say the words like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like, there's all kinds of
mm,
things that women like us and the women that are listening probably can do. I'm sure we have all kinds of gifts and talents and skills, but stepping into that place and giving yourself permission to operate from a place of like what lights you up and brings you joy, and being and creating that balance with your family and your business, like when you get to do that and you get to receive
yeah,
in all that way, it's a totally different experience.
totally.
And what I want to say to the listeners is like, okay, but there's that whole 5 years in between, right? Like, how did you, so this is one of the things that can happen, and I'm just curious how you navigated this when you decided. Like, it sounds magical and it's magical now, but it's not like a magic pill that happens overnight. So
No, there were a
when
lot of tears and a lot of hard times.
exactly, and that's the part that people don't always see, right?
Owed it too
So
much.
that it's all worth it, right? Like, you would
Totally.
do it again because now here you are. So tell me about a time where maybe you noticed and how you navigated it, sort of like that old, those old survivor strategies come in, because obviously I call them survivor strategies.
Mm,
You created success in your corporate life, but
mm.
you had all of the things like you shared, right? But you didn't feel fulfilled. So as you stepped into creating a life that you loved, when you was there a time that you noticed kind of your former version of you, like, peeking its head in and being like, hey, like, you don't have this like you think you do? And what did that look like, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, 100%. It's not all, all suns and moons and stars, and it's been, tickety boo all along the way. It has been hard, and I think um the biggest thing for us is that we had, I guess, a vision, and we had a dream, and we were willing to take risks to do it. So whenever I believe someone has a vision, a very strong vision, or at least for me, whenever I've had a really strong vision, I have had the utmost trust that's going to come to me, that's going to happen. I don't actually get caught up in the how it's going to happen. I didn't know what we were gonna do when we landed, other than having an Airbnb booked in Paris. When we arrived in France, we arrived with 7 suitcases, and I didn't know what, I had to surrender to all of the how it was going to happen. I mean, that was philosophically, that's a big one. And then as I reconstructed, I guess, this new version of myself, you have to just be, prepared to be super vulnerable, and, knowing that it's not going to be all smooth sailing. And I expanded my learning, and I expanded my concept of self, so that I started adding, tools to my toolbox to make the journey easier. I invested in coaches. I invested in, I did an energy healing session with you way back when.
That's right.
I stopped trying to do it myself, actually. I think that was the biggest difference in corporate, and even in my first foray into entrepreneurship. I tried to do it all myself. I think I was trying to prove to me, to the world, to my parents, everybody that was out there, that I could do this. Whereas this time around, I've stopped doing that, and I've started listening more to myself. And then I've reached for different tools. And if I didn't have the tools, I found them. And I open myself up, and that is vulnerable, because sometimes people don't even want to get to have a business coach, because they don't want the business coach to see the insides of their business and how in shambles it might actually be. But same thing, with the session that we did years ago, and just have to be ready to be open for the fact that it's not always going to be a smooth journey, but that you can seek power with the help of others, and just to continue to add tools to your toolbox of ways to continue to grow as a woman, as a business owner, as a mom. And I just believe that I'm not there yet. It's all part of the journey, that these are all just kind of stepping stones to what's to come next.
Yeah. And as I hear you speak to that, one of the words that I use that is a feminine quality is it's receiving. It's like
Mm,
shifting. It does feel vulnerable because we are shifting from that place of like, I can do it all. And again, just because you can doesn't mean you have to. You don't have to do it all. In fact, it feels really good to
mm,
receive. And actually, it feels really good to invest in yourself for support. And when you
100%.
start, yeah, and it starts to just open up and unfold energetically more opportunities because you're
Yeah.
willing to receive support, whether it's support with your kids or your
Mm,
house or your
mm,
business or your personal growth, because being an entrepreneur is a very deeply welcoming path of personal and spiritual development and growth. Like, it's
yeah.
a good business coach isn't just doing the business strategy. They are able to hold the space for all the vulnerable things that are kind of come up, because especially if you have a fear of rejection, abandonment, or failure, it's going to happen
Don't start me
over.
on that.
Right. And it's not for everybody, right? Like it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But so when in my next question is that what your work is centered around? Are you really centered? Because from the story that you shared, are you a coach for women who are seeking to leave corporate, or do you support women in feminine leadership in their corporate roles because you do have that experience? Or what is really your zone of genius around that?
Yeah, so I work mainly with other entrepreneurs, but often they come from ex-corporate backgrounds. And I am a certified life coach, and so I love to blend my life coaching together with my business coaching. And those, those are exactly like you described. A business coach that just does strategy and gives you advice is a consultant. You can go and get a consultant to give you advice. But the work that really lights me up is the work that really blends personal and business transformation together. And when women are ready to ask for help and be open to receive it, they get the most incredible results. And so I guess that's the work I love to do. I've just launching a new group program that, I guess is modeled on that, knowing that it's both a personal journey as well as a business one, because that was where in my one-on-one practice I was getting the biggest sense of fulfillment and joy and amazement, was for my one-on-one clients that were completely transformed, life-changing transformations via their businesses, into spaces that they didn't know even existed. And so, that work, that philosophy, I guess, continues to, influence all of my work. And so it's probably less the person who hasn't left their business yet or left their corporate job yet. but is already on that journey or very early in the journey, up to, up to 5 or 10 years into business. People often look for a coach who is somebody who can, or at least the clients that seek me out, is someone who can show them a new way. And I guess it's, for me, it's about the fact that I think there's an opportunity for women to personally define their version of freedom. And I've sought freedom in certain ways, but moving around the globe isn't, would be a nightmare for some people. They think that's, a terrible thing. And so it is for each person. It's personally defining their version of freedom and knowing that there is a different way to do business. And I think there's a whole new paradigm to doing business, and it's not just about hustling and grinding. And I have been able to show people that you can grow a significant business, and if you kind of blend that energetic piece with a smart strategy. Of course, you need a strategy. You can't just be aiming for nothing and going at it willy-nilly. But it doesn't have to be complicated. Just a smart strategy plus the energetic piece can give you incredible results. And so that's what I love. That's my zone of genius.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really leaning into that as you're sharing it all. There were like so many questions that were coming up, and I'm curious, what are some of the tools that you love, that you feel you're really sharing, sort of, maybe for the first time with some of these women? I'm getting the sense that the women that are coming to you, they're probably already high performers, right? So they've already
Generally
got
pretty
that
ambitious.
pretty ambitious high performers, and maybe that's a pattern that, like, what tools do you integrate to sort of, because sometimes, I like to speak to, like, a lot of times we created that, we won't go into this, but we created that sort of survivor strategy from something in the past, but it survivor strategies can look like achievements and
Yes.
certifications and overworking and perfectionism, and some of us do have, I should say, kind of thrived in that. And so I'm hearing that you're inviting this softer way, and receiving is one of the words that came up that I said, but it's, and also sharing that you can actually get the same, like, tangible physical results, maybe even more than you thought you had to do with the old strategies, by using some of these other tools or these other
Yeah.
methods. And I know there's a little personal work integrated into that. So what are some of those kind of tools or concepts that you share with the
Yeah.
women you work with?
Yeah. So one of them, and this could be done whether or not people are in business or not, is really about embodying your goals. And so, a goal might be, a certain dollar figure, might be a thing you want to do, but it's really about saying, okay, that's, let's say it's inviting, if we're talking business, like 10 women into your one-on-one practice, and then actually writing down and outlining, in order to have those 10 women come into your business, what are the beliefs that you have to have? Because then we know those beliefs influence our thoughts, and then those thoughts influence our feelings, and those feelings influence our behaviors. So if you write down and be very, very intentional about what are the beliefs I need to have, that there are 10 women that are out there, and not, being coming at that from a place of abundance, that you are the right person to be able to guide these women, and then it's going to influence your thoughts on a daily basis, and then the feelings that you're having. And on the flip side, also writing down the things that you want to release, that you want to get rid of. And obviously it's usually the contrary of the beliefs, thoughts, and feelings, so that you are acting and you're behaving on a daily basis in a very aligned way, but in striving towards that particular goal. And that goal could be big, it could be small. I've done that for, for launches that I've had, inviting 100 women into a certain program. And it just really helps me. And it's something that I have as a document. I have it sitting in front of me. And so it reminds me on a daily basis how I need to, those aren't doing things, those are being practices, how I want my mind to be on that day, because we are all human, and we wake up some days and are not feeling like that, and are, pulled in so many different directions by kids and dogs jumping fences. I say that because our dog keeps on escaping, and all sorts of different things in life. And it's so easy to kind of then come back to your desk and just and feel a little bit, not in the right place. So that practice has been really, really helpful for me, and to be able to, I share that with my clients. So goal embodiment is one of them. There's another practice that I use, which is a little bit influenced from Kate Northrup, and being in her program a while ago, which is to, we all, a lot of and as a generator, and a lot of us come to our businesses and like to schedule things in, like to, like our to-do lists, and like to schedule, stuff that we want to accomplish in the week. And I've taken a bit of a different angle on scheduling and being really intentional about the things that I want to accomplish in the week. And I come at it from a place of, what do I personally need first? And so I actually have and I hope to be able to produce a diary or an agenda journal type thing eventually, to be able to sell and bring this out to the market in a bigger way. But what do I need is the question that I ask myself first. And I think about that from the sense of, where am I at in my cycle? What are happening in the cosmos? What's happening with lunar cycles that are around me? So I kind of measure my energy on a weekly basis, and I say, okay, I am at this place in my cycle. This is happening in the cosmos. I feel like this week I need to spend a little bit of extra time meditating, or I really need to get back out into nature. And I schedule those times in, like I schedule me and what I need in my mind and my body and my soul first, really intentionally. And before I even schedule my calls in and put all the other, appointments and everything. And I do that in a document every week, because if you just have it digitally and it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling, there's no intentionality to it. There's no consciousness that you bring to that schedule. And so on a Sunday or on a Monday, I start with it blank every time, and I write the dates and I say, what's my focus this week? Where's the moon at? How am I feeling? What do I need more of? What do I personally need more of? I'm feeling really overwhelmed or stressed, or I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really energized. I'm going to go and, I have a whole day that I can go to the coast and have a creative session just with myself. And, I think about how I fit myself, how I want to be, how I really want to be that week. And then I put the other bits and pieces in on top of that.
I love that. I mean, you're totally speaking my language, embodiment, embodied healing self. And,
Yeah.
that the way that you ask those questions activate the reticular activating system, which really puts us into, I did a quote on Instagram the other day. It's like, if you're making decisions from where you are, you're going to stay where you are. If you make your decisions from the person you want to become, then you're going to get there.
That's
And
right.
so really shifting that mindset into the place of embodying it. And it's not just a mindset though, it's like a feeling. It's like actually allowing that energy to resonate all the way down to the root chakra. My community is familiar with chakras.
Yeah.
We talk about them.
Yes.
But the total embodiment is like, and that's the beauty of the feminine work, is that sacral chakra.
Yes.
Sacral chakra is prosperity, abundance, creativity, receiving, intimacy, and all the things. And so that's what this feminine work does. It really helps you access that creator consciousness. I'm a former like total math geek, engineer, variable calculus, the whole thing, loved math. I never even knew that I had creativity. And when I get in my creative mode, I can't stop. And you mentioned a journal. I'm actually in the final stages of getting a 365-day journal published.
So
It
cool.
also has the new moons. It's called 13 Moons of Daily Devotion.
Yeah.
I have really, when I was health coaching, seed cycling was something that I was familiar with, and I was practicing Ayurveda eating seasonally. So I was already in that mindset of seeing the tangible benefits of how important it was to eat in season. And then
Yes.
how seed cycling and supporting your hormonal needs, because that
Yes.
is a thing for women, whether you
Massive.
have a
Massive.
cycle or not. I mean, I've
Totally.
got 2 teenage daughters now, so I'm reminded of like, it is
It is
a
a real thing.
thing. And, integrating that, I was also inspired by Kate. I guess I've been practicing it for about 4 years, but not only planning around the moons, but also around the solstices and the equinoxes and seasonally.
And the seasons.
And it
Yeah.
is like, if somebody were to ask me what I mean, other than the deep interpersonal work and letting go of all the expectations and all the perfectionism and all that, but planning cyclically is,
Mm,
being in tune to your body is
yes.
life changing. And
Totally. So much so. And it's interesting because I didn't realize it before we came here, but France actually really embraces
yeah,
um
they do.
and Europe does probably in more in general very seasonal living. So I can't go to macro Whole Foods. Well, A, it doesn't exist, but I can't even go to the supermarket here out of season and find something at the supermarket that doesn't grow at that time of year. Maybe strawberries because they might come from Spain and Portugal, but everything is seasonal. Everything. So we're coming into asparagus season right now, and that is everywhere. And you eat asparagus at this time of year. You can't get, things that are, even things like broccoli and cauliflower that you would just assume would come year round because they're more of a winter vegetable.
Yeah, I love that. That's
And
awesome.
it actually, once you kind of get used to it, then you're like, this is
Except if
actually
you don't
really
like
good.
asparagus. And I don't like
Well, there's
asparagus.
other things other than asparagus. The
It's so
tomatoes will be here before we know it.
well, it's so funny. There's actually a gene for whether or not you're gonna like broccoli or asparagus, and I
Ah,
actually did the whole gene thing, and I have like I've never liked broccoli or asparagus, and this is like probably too much information, but really like some people like if you can smell it when it comes out of you, like there's
yes.
some people that don't, some people that do. There is a gene for it, and I'm like
Ah,
I
I
don't make
didn't
my
know
kids
that.
eat asparagus or broccoli because I can't. I mean, even though I was like a health coach for 8 years, it's just like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know what? My body doesn't process it or like it. There are other things and it's okay.
There are other things at the supermarket other than asparagus,
For
but that was one
sure.
example. It's just that there are lots of it right now.
It's one of the things I love about France is
Yes.
it's like my favorite. My kids remember it too, is going to the supermarket and just they're just, or I guess street markets. I don't know, even
Mm.
just the,
Yeah, the local markets.
oh, they're so amazing.
Yes.
So the cyclical planning is a huge thing. And one other thing that I heard that you say was the freedom. I think that that's a really key component to all of this because freedom means
Mm.
different things to different people.
Mm.
What would you say is, in that sense, or maybe it's something else, but what would you say that women are seeking when they come to you?
Time.
Yeah, time freedom's a big one.
Yeah. Time would probably even trump money. So
Oh, for
time and
sure.
money, yeah, time they would say if I could have more time. And for part of the coaching that I do is not just they offer the first place that they go to is I want more time with my kids and my husband. But what they also sometimes don't realize is that they're not spending enough time with themselves and they're not spending enough time prioritizing themselves. I get them to initially, write a list of the priorities and the people who are the biggest priorities in their life. And they never write themselves on that list. And so when you write a list and you've got your kids and your husband, I mean, your husband probably should be first, after then your kids. But we need to then physically write ourselves at the top of that list because if we're pouring from an empty cup, then we've got nothing to give our husbands and our kids and our families and our friends and everything else that falls after that. So
Mm.
yeah, I would say time and learning to reconnect with self will then really, I think there's so much, there's mental freedom, and then there's the time, real true productive energy time freedom that we can find.
Yeah, I'm time freedom is my
Mm,
that's mine. Time
yeah.
time freedom for sure. It's quality of life. And
Yes.
so when I hear you say that, like it sounds easy, but what is really the thing between that? What is the thing between the thing that women are seeking, that time freedom, and where they are? Because my guess is, and the first question I asked you is that when you step into that space, the old patterns will still, like, for example, if I'm
Mm,
a high performer and all of a sudden I've got all this free time because I'm choosing it, I might be uncomfortable with it at
yes.
first.
Yes.
So, what are the things that, I guess, when women are stepping into that space, that might come up that you're helping them work through?
Um, well, a lot of times people initially, it's all about, and it needs to be about the client and the customer experience. But a lot of times when people are just starting out, or even have been going for a long while, they're pretty much thinking the client is queen. I have to do everything I can do
Mm.
to serve and to create products or services for her or him, or for your client. But then they forget about themselves. So I see a lot of clients, creating programs that fulfill a need and might tick that box and might tick the box that it's going to make them some money. But then they're having to, run that program at times that don't suit them, in evenings, or it's just not feeling like it's very fulfilling for them. So in the process of coming up just with offers and products and services, it has to be really balanced. I get them to really think about something, making sure that it's fulfilling them as well as a need or a gap in the market. Because I've seen so many times that it's been created and they know they can do it because they think, oh, I've got this skill and it matches up with this need and I'm going to do that. And then they actually kind of don't want to do that at the end of the day, or it makes them have to sacrifice, a variety of different values of their own.
Which
So
is just the same cycle as before, just in a different
that's
environment,
right.
right?
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. But it's so easy to jump into that. It's like a needs analysis. You say, okay, there's a need, I can do that. But and so here's an example of it. I came through the advertising ranks and I've always been really good at sales. And so initially that's what I gravitated to. I could teach people sales until I can do it in my sleep kind of thing. And so I did it and I did it well. I didn't always want to do sales, but I just did it well. So that's the first thing that I went to.
Mm.
But then when I really looked at, am I feeling aligned in my business? Am I really feeling aligned with who I am? There's a lot more to me than just sales. And so when I started really, branching out, and this does take trial and error, going back to one of your earlier questions, the trial and error of just trying things and seeing what works and what feels aligned, and being ready to fail and being ready to be messy and show up, in all of your imperfect action. You have to be ready to do all of that, and to then discover, what alignment really truly means and how it feels, because you can't just start on day one and feel aligned. I think you have to go through that process to find that alignment.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like to say, like, there really is no failure. It's clarity. It's clarity on
Totally.
what didn't work. And so,
Yes.
and honestly, that's how you get to alignment, is a lot of like
Yes.
what doesn't work takes you
Yes.
into what feels good and what does work. And I love that you
Yeah.
speak to sort of the energy of, like, you get to choose. Like, you don't have
Mm.
to, you get to choose what it looks like just because you're good
Yes.
at something. I remember when I switched from health coaching to life coaching and doing energy work, and I'd always get, oh, but can you just like do some health? I'm like, no, I mean, that's like really kind of boring to me now. That was,
Yes.
I
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
went as
You've
far as I
evolved.
could go, functional
Mm.
medicine, detoxification, and I was in that world, and I'm just not there anymore. And I would still get asked the question. And, it's at first can be a little hard to say no, because
Yes.
you're like,
Totally.
people, I could help them, but then the more you stand in your clarity, the
Mm.
more you attract, the relationships that you're meant to co-create with. And
100%. Yes.
that's really what alignment is: aligning to your true values, your true self, the things
That's
that
right.
light you up, and
That's right.
then
And it's
choosing.
and it's those clients, it's having clients that you work with that you go, this doesn't always feel good. This is, not an energetic exchange. I feel really drained after this person. And so you kind of, with your, like I just mentioned, like products and services, you get better at fine tuning what you want to do, but you also get better at who you want to work with. And
Yes.
so it is a very fulfilling exchange, and obviously in the coaching world. But yeah, it takes trial and error. It takes having those relationships and going, I said yes to that because I was coming at it from a place of lack, and I wanted the money,
Mm.
and it turned out to be a drain, and it's just not the thing that really fills me up. So, again,
Yes.
another example of just getting out there and trying things, and failing fast, and learning who it is what is that sweet spot, who is that person that really does light you up and that you could sit there and chat with like a friend.
Yeah. So, I guess kind of wrapping up the conversation, I'm just curious, like, about sort of because this has been a journey. This has been a lifelong journey, right? And the journey still
Yes.
continues.
Yeah.
But there was a moment where you were like, like, yes. And maybe there'll be more moments, like, but there was a moment, like, maybe the journey will continue to up level, evolve, and unfold, as I am sure that it will. But what was that moment like where you were just like, it's like, it feels
It's
good,
happening.
like it's
Yeah.
happening, I'm aligned, tell me a little bit about that.
It was probably I'm big on physical spaces and energy in physical spaces. So this around me, when we've always renovated a lot, and we had this dream 15, 16 years ago to renovate a falling down French farmhouse. And I remember waking up on the morning after our first night sleeping here and looking out. We've got farm fields in front of us and there are deer out there, and it felt like I'd come home. It felt like I had
Mm,
truly I'd created the business, but it was like, I really feel like I want the business to be a vehicle to living my life first, and the life that I could feel around me and in my physical space, and also just in everything that I was doing here, felt really aligned, felt really, really good. So it would probably be that day, waking up, in this space last
mm,
year.
that's beautiful, and your house is
Mm.
absolutely gorgeous. I really enjoyed watching the journey, and I'm so grateful that you've shared it. And what
Thank
I
you.
want to say around that for those listening is that what I heard you say, and this is so important, and this has been my experience as well, is that when you had that moment, not like, you were already in the feeling, in the energy of also what was to come, and
Mm,
that what would continue to come in your business. You had this vision of this dream house, and you woke up
mm,
that morning and you're like, it's here. And
mm.
also, it was the energy of who you're continuing to become
Yes,
as a result of everything that
yeah,
had to get you to that moment, right?
yes,
So, because
yeah,
sometimes we can see, sense, and feel sort of where we're going, but
mm,
not everything is tangibly visible at the moment. But,
yeah,
going back to what you shared earlier about the embodiment of what it's going to be like
mm,
is something that it's kind of hard to put words to, but it's like, I think we just want to encourage people to know. And there is a huge surrender, right? Like, there's a
mm,
surrender and a patience to just allowing the process to unfold
yes,
as it's meant
as it
to.
needed to. Yeah, we didn't know
Yeah.
how we were going to build a house in a. I mean, I speak French, but my husband largely did it, and he doesn't speak French, and he constructed an old farmhouse, reconstructed an old farmhouse in France. So there was a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of, when you're renovating, a lot of flux and a lot of you know upheaval, and not feeling grounded and rooted at all. So that was, I think, when it was, finally feeling like it was coming to fruition, that, when I woke up that morning and saw, the sunrise, it was, felt like I had arrived somewhere.
Mm, yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Arriving. Well,
Mm,
it has been a pleasure and an honor to have you just sharing and inspiring women to create more feminine flow in their
mm,
work ethic, whether it's,
yes, yes,
to the listeners wherever you are now, just sort of giving us that permission to lean into
mm,
softening a little bit and
that's right.
receiving and allowing. And for people who are looking to find out ways to work with you, tell us where we can find you.
On all the channels. So I have a website under suzanneacteson.com. Instagram, I love to share in my stories and posts there, and obviously Facebook a little bit. Those are the kind of main channels I have. Everything from self-led courses to a group program to one-on-one coaching currently. And yeah, they obviously can get in touch with me in my email or my DMs inside Instagram. yeah, I welcome having, just conversations and just connecting with women, connecting with you and connecting, just literally connecting and having conversations with women is something that I love to do on a daily basis. I run free master classes every month just to connect with my community and, just to be, you know, out there and in the field and not just in the, in the, I don't know, sometimes in the clouds a little bit. Sometimes I think with coaching can sometimes be theoretical, and I just like to really be making sure that I'm not just talking to clients who are investing, but people who are out there looking for coaches and looking for help, and sometimes feeling like it's a struggle.
Yeah. Well, that is the intention of this podcast as well, is just to share and connect and invite people
Yeah.
into the space for the conversation. So thank you for being
Thank you for
a part
having
of
me.
this space. Absolutely. And so we will put the links to ways that people
Beautiful.
can find you. Is there anything that you have that's like newly shared or upcoming? You mentioned a group coaching program.
Yeah, well,
What's
Phoenix Rising starts,
Oh
I don't know when
yes, I
this is
love
coming
the
out.
name. That's
Phoenix
right.
So
Love
Phoenix
it.
Rising starts May 9th. I mean, people can still join, shortly thereafter if they are interested. And that's a beautiful group program with one-on-one and group calls with me over a 6-month period. So that will be that's really that blending of personal and business transformation. That has always just been kind of, inside my one-on-one coaching practice. I will send you a link. I had a beautiful masterclass this month called Divine Feminine Energy that I will send you. I'm turning into just a class that people can watch. And that I'll send you the link to that. So I'll send you the link
Awesome.
to that one, and then people can watch that as a free resource. And yeah, but there's obviously Phoenix Rising, and then Annuel. I haven't mentioned Annuel is a self-paced course that I have that it really helps women in business and entrepreneurs learn how to strategically plan their business and actually, map out what their future kind of looks like very intentionally, but done so in much more feminine inspired ways. So, everything from cycle syncing to, planning with the seasons, following them, their own cycles, other cycles, and things that are around us, and learning how to really kind of embody and embrace that embodiment process of getting to goals, as well as looking at, Excel spreadsheets and balancing everything from strategy and energy in a really kind of I say straightforward. It's simple. It's a simple self-led course that breaks down strategy, because people struggle with strategy,
Mm,
and makes it more attainable. So that's an easy self-led thing that people can buy on my website at any time.
beautiful. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
sharing all those offerings, and thank you
no
for
problem.
joining us from France. It's
It's been a
probably
joy.
dinner. It's almost dinner time there, I'm
Five
guessing.
o'clock, five
Yeah.
o'clock here. So yeah, kids will be coming in the door shortly.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne, and
Thank you, Jen. It's so nice to connect.
aloha, everyone.